right. Greetings, everyone. T-Strats here. So I have The Last of Us Part 2 story, the trailer queued up, and I'm going to do something that I never really do. I'm going to do a live reaction to this story trailer. And of course, I don't use a face cam, so it's something that's probably really half the experience for most people, but it's still something I wanted to do, to get something fresh and new, and have that initial raw reaction. Because for those of you who know me, like, I'm not really a larger than life kind of personality. I don't get really amped up or crazy into something. I am definitely more measured, reserved, known for being just a really chill Last of Us player. So it was recently brought to my attention that the developers never ever get to experience their games that first kind of raw reaction. That's why they're so drawn to those reaction videos. And so I think it's probably the least I can do is record my first viewing of this. And then probably sometime this weekend when I'm not in the middle of work, I'll try to break down this trailer, however long it is, and figure out maybe some more of the details or some of the nuances, or if there's any esoteric things hidden in it, potentially. We'll see. But, all right. Here we go.
I know you wish things were different.
That's cool. Looks like Boston. Jackson.
I wish things were different.
Oh man, Ellie looks so happy.
Ellie! But they ain't.
Please stop!
This music's really good. I love this melancholic vibe it's given off.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Gosh damn, that forest looks
Do
real.
this smart, we'd be leaving Jackson vulnerable.
So they just get to get away with this?
How'd you find us?
You can't stop this.
I want what you want. But not at any cost.
Oh, that table's so freaking cool looking.
I really hope you make it.
I have to finish it.
There's a cost.
Oh my gosh.
We could have killed you. Maybe you should have.
Wow. That was freaking intense. Oh my god. I gotta watch that again. Greetings, everyone. T-Strats here. So now it's been several days. So first of all, I must apologize. Sorry this has taken a little bit longer than I would have liked to have gotten out. I had a very busy work week, and then I actually got under the weather on Sunday, so that kind of pushed this whole thing back just a little bit. But the other thing is that I wanted to say that I still have not been spoiled. I've only seen one spoiler at this time, and it was something that I kind of already assumed would happen anyways. So I will not be addressing any spoilers, any leaks, nothing of the sort. So take everything that I'm saying here with a grain of salt. I have not seen any other kind of insight into the game. So if anything seems like I'm overlooking something obvious, it might be that you've seen a leak or a spoiler, and I have not. So I am going to do a spoiler-free breakdown here. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing I noticed here is this is pretty much almost exactly the same as The Last of Us, the first one, except the nudity. The nudity is new. So
I know you wish things were different.
that is one interesting detail. Now, this first scene really kind of threw me for a loop. I think you'll find this entire trailer is cut and edited very, very interestingly. This appears to be some kind of flashback or just a peek back at an earlier time in The Last of Us Part 1. You can tell by their clothes. Joel's clothes and Ellie's clothes are the same ones from the game. There's three kind of like points, three things that are kind of like landmarks that really kind of made me want to figure out what kind of city this was. The building in the middle, the building on the right with the kind of spire, and the police car on the lower right. And based off of the fact that this appears to be in the summer or even potentially early fall, but most likely it's in the summer after they have left Pittsburgh, that kind of leads me to believe that the general area would be around here, that they could possibly be Columbus, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Louisville, St. Louis, Kansas City even. But somewhere in between Pittsburgh and Jackson is most likely where this city, if this is kind of this flashback, where it would be, based off, from my understanding, of the appearance of Joel and Ellie, and also the time of the season. There's one thing that kind of throws a wrench into this, and that is when I saw a gameplay from back in September. The police car looks exactly the same as one found in Seattle, the Seattle suburbs, which I don't know if they just got lazy with it or what, but that's kind of crazy. Like, I can't believe that maybe Joel and Ellie made it all the way over to Seattle in part 1. It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. So maybe that police car was just put in there as it is so that we wouldn't find out exactly what city it was. But anyways, I digress. Let's continue. Now, this was a little bit that really kind of stuck out in my first initial viewings of this. I kind of consider myself a pretty shrewd observer of people's motivations, and part of that is body language. And the little subtle moments of Ellie right here, and I've said this in previous videos, it's sometimes what's not said that speaks volumes. And for me, the way that she kind of looks at Joel and then looks down and looks to the right, it kind of reminded me of how you would look at someone and their body language, kind of how they are thinking about things. If someone's like recalling something, they usually look to the side and tilt their head up a little bit as if they're listening. If a person is like kind of mentally talking to themselves, they often will look down and then to the left. Whereas here, if someone is recalling a feeling or an emotion, they will look down and to the right. And that is exactly what Ellie does. She looks down and to the right. She is recalling this emotion, and from what I can tell, it is not a pleasant one. It seems like it is one of doubt, and just the way that she looks at Joel is kind of, for me, kind of maybe the seeds of doubt of him very early in their journey. Now we have what is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous shot of what is clearly Jackson. We have Tommy and we have Joel on horses. Joel's got a guitar sling over his back. There's something about this shot. It's the colors. The color is this yellow, a very, very warm yellow. It makes it feel very inviting, very safe. And you even have what appears to be a sunset or sunrise. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. I cannot entirely tell the orientation of Jackson here. My guess that it is probably a sunrise. Sun rising in the east, sets in the west. Based off of my observations of the first game, I think it's a sunrise. But I could get that completely wrong. But anyways, doesn't really matter. The key thing is here is notice the emotion that it's evoking. This beautiful, safe feeling, and how that changes based on the other colors that we see later in the trailer. Now, what we have in this next scene is pretty amazing. It is Joel teaching Ellie to play guitar, apparently. And I'm sure millions of people have noticed that there is the moth symbol on the guitar neck right above the capo. And if you're interested in learning more about the moth, I went into it in much, much greater detail in a previous video, the In Between the Lines video. And you can check that out and all the symbolism with the moth in that video. I'm not going to go into that here. But there is one other thing in this scene, and that is the look on Ellie's face. She is genuinely happy. I mean, I don't know if she'll ever be this happy again in her life. It's just a classic smile. And again, these warm colors really kind of bring that safety and warmth out.
I wish things were different.
I have to admit, I had to watch this scene a couple of times because there was something about it that just seemed a little bit off. Like it was a dream. Like it wasn't entirely real. Like this, the way that Ellie interacts with Joel seems very much like the bus depot level in Last of Us Part 1. Just she seems very aloof, very off, very unfocused. And for me, I had to watch it several times just to see if Joel was actually there and it wasn't just Ellie kind of having these visions while looking at this dead body on the ground. Because it's really interesting how they focus specifically on the dead body on the ground here first. And it's almost like Joel's like this side illusion that kind of comes out in a moment.
Ellie! But they ain't.
Now, one of the first things I noticed in this trailer upon the first initial viewing and maybe the first couple was that there really isn't that many scenes with infected, and the infected are never really like a huge focus. And I've mentioned this many times in my live streams and on other videos, and even Bill said it as well in the very first one. It's not so much the infected, it's the humans that he's really worried about. And in this trailer, we see so much of the human element, the other factions, these other factions, some of them that we don't even know their names or what their deal is so far. At least I don't. And that really has been brought up to me is just how the infected are more of kind of a side threat. Still a threat, but more of a side threat. The main driving component is the human element in the human struggle. Now we get a gorgeous shot of what appears to be some rural area absolutely on fire. I think we're supposed to think it is Jackson, and this is the catalyst of Ellie going on her quest for vengeance. I cannot confirm that, but based off of the plants in the foreground and on both of the sides, it does seem like it could definitely be Jackson, but it's really tricky to tell. It's really tricky to tell. This could be a scene from somewhere in Seattle. It's really tough, but regardless of where it is, this scene is absolutely beautiful. So well done. And I must say that the music in this trailer is amazing. This first half is very melancholic, and the second half is driving and intense, and I love both of it. Really, really good stuff. So here's a little interesting detail that you may or may not have picked up on. When viewing this, I was reminded of the State of Play trailer that was in September 2019, and it appeared to have the same scene in it. But when I reviewed it, there's a couple noticeable differences. One, if you look at Ellie's shoulder, in the current trailer, it has been stitched shut, whereas in the previous trailer, it had been an open wound. The other thing is like the kind of like cupboard in the back has shoes and clothes in it, where in the most recent trailer it does not. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if it was just art direction, they decided to get rid of it, but it was just enough of a little bit of a change that really it kind of caught my attention. I'm like, it felt different immediately. I remember the open wound, and I remember when I saw this, I'm like, why is the wound suddenly closed?
I'm leaving to.
So one thing that helps to look at when kind of figuring out how the video has been cut or edited is by looking at the clothes. This is Ellie here. You can see that her tattoo is slightly peeking out from under the sleeve. You can tell that it's the green jacket, and also for me it's the boots. This is what I call Patrol Ellie, the outfit. And notice that when she's in Seattle, she doesn't have the boots. She's wearing more of like sneakers. And that's just a little thing that I kind of pay attention to see where along the timeline it may fall.
Tomorrow.
To do this smart.
Now we have our first look at what was basically left of the Seattle quarantine zone. There are three things that really kind of arrested my attention. The first is at the top, the Fedra banner that says Seattle on it, probably said Seattle quarantine zone. And just below that on the right appears to be two Fedra vehicles, one of which we kind of saw in that initial gameplay trailer when Ellie went prone underneath. Now, whether it's the same Humvee, that's to be determined. But you can notice that there's two Fedra vehicles there. One, I think, features later in this trailer as well. The last thing is the WLF, the wolf graffiti on the main gate.
We'll be leaving Jackson vulnerable.
So for those of you who have watched my A Discerning Glance video, this probably strikes a chord with you. If you haven't seen that video, you should probably check it out. It's probably one of the best videos ever made, specifically about The Last of Us Part 2. With this, one of the big things in that video was I discussed how all of the disemboweled were hanging from lampposts. Apparently their lights being extinguished. Very symbolic with the Seraphites. With this here, I was like, oh damn, there's no lamppost. That whole thing must be out the window. But then I took a second look, and I noticed that they are actually hanging from light scaffolding. You can see all around them, there are lights. Their lights are still extinguished. So that metaphor may still be in play.
They just get away with this.
How'd you find us?
Here we see Ellie's switchblade being used against her. Yes, that is her very own switchblade, the one that was given to her from her mother, Anna. So, happy Mother's Day, Ellie.
You can't stop this.
So this part was particularly interesting because Ellie appears to be at an upgrade table. So I'm highly curious if at this point, if you're upgrading, if you can be attacked mid-upgrade, that would be quite a surprise. Can't wait to find out.
I want what you want, but not at any cost.
Speaking of upgrade tables, so here we get a good look at what looks like a pretty typical upgrade table in the game, and it is absolutely amazing. The amount of detail that goes into this is unreal. Just to think that they put this much attention to detail in an upgrade table just blows my mind. Just how every component of the game has had so much nuance, and it just absolutely blows my mind. The other thing about this, I love how they've taken the idea of customizing your weapons to the next level, where you have to make critical decisions to choose how you want to modify these weapons for your play style, the one that you're comfortable with or the one that you want to really engage with. I love this. It's not just like, oh, everything's upgraded now, now I'm done. It's like it looks like you have to make crucial decisions on which direction you want to go, which I love.
I really hope you make it.
I love that they added this little scene in here because it really, for me, kind of tied into a previous trailer, something that I felt had been cut in a strange way. I'll get into more detail that in a later part of this breakdown, but just pay attention to Jesse's clothing, his jacket in particular. Ellie's expression here to me just screams disbelief, like the rug's just been pulled out from underneath her feet. She looks like she's dealing with extreme loss, confusion, and probably found herself on her own once again. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but somehow Joel seems even older here than he did in the earlier part of this trailer. Once again, that could just be my opinion, maybe just my weird view of it, but he just seems to have aged even more. Now, I have no idea who this guy is, but I'm kind of calling him Interrogation Man because he certainly seems to be the same person in the State of Play trailer. I think his hairline kind of gives him away. He seems like this is the same person. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I have to finish.
So earlier in this trailer, I kind of touched on the use of color in evoking emotions. And that is what I get very, very strongly with this whole red light section of the game. And red is typically known, some people can say it relates with anger, which it does, but it's also a warning. It's kind of a natural warning. You'll find very many animals, insects in the natural world will have red colors, bright red colors to indicate danger and warning. And that is what I get very strongly from this scene.
There's a cost.
I'm really glad they added this little scene here because for me it kind of jogged something that I was discussing earlier, and it was in the State of Play trailer when Ellie is surprised when someone grabs her from behind. For me, this kind of tied it in, and I feel that it's probably Jesse that went to Seattle to track down Ellie and maybe persuade her to come back, maybe to assist her for a little bit. This is how I kind of see this whole sequence working. Notice the jacket. The jacket can very easily be Jesse's jacket.
What the hell are you doing here?
Says, I'm here to take you back to Jackson, or something else.
I really hope you make it.
She says no. He says, I hope you make it. One of the little nitpicky things that bothered me about the first game was the use of gasoline. Because traditional gasoline petrol would definitely have gone bad after 10 years. Even with the additives that can be used to preserve it, you're lucky to get 15 years. And at this point in the game, they're way past that. And so traditional gasoline would no longer be valid at all. So I'm really curious how they discovered how to use some kind of gasoline for both here in Seattle. And we also saw trucks in Jackson driving as well. So I'm curious how they solved that whole gasoline issue. Here we have Ellie walking away from Joel and what appears to be great disappointment. The obvious thing that some people would say is obviously he told her that he lied about what had happened in Salt Lake with the Fireflies. But also at the end of The Last of Us, it was really implied that Ellie knew that he was lying as well. Maybe she did not know the full extent of his lie. So part of me thinks that this is something else entirely. And even with all of these disagreements with Joel, it's really hard to tell which part of it is actually happening and maybe which part of it is just something playing out in Ellie's mind. And here we see Ellie and another character engaged in mortal combat with a knife. We did see this puffy jacketed character earlier in the trailer, apparently in what appears to be some kind of interrogation room, although I'm not sure that it's linked with Interrogation Man who we saw earlier, because it does seem to be a different kind of location. This last scene though is just filled with intensity, agony, and oh my gosh. If you notice at the very beginning, you'll see a hand just on the side, and it's hard to tell if it's a hand reaching out, in sadness, like wanting to embrace, or if it's actually Ellie strangling someone to death. Really, really difficult to tell, but really, really fabulously shot.
We could have killed you. Maybe you should have.
And with that, the trailer ends. So what are my overall thoughts on this trailer? I think it's very well done. Very, very well done. One of the biggest revelations that I found exciting was the very first scene, the kind of like flashback scene. And it's not even necessarily a flashback. It's just recalling maybe a period in part one, like to fill in some of these gaps of things that could have happened, some of these experiences. It'll be interesting to see how it changes our viewpoints of these characters. I know a lot of people think Joel is a jerk. Other people see him as a hero. And really, like all the characters in Last of Us, they're somewhere in between. They're a blend of both. And I like that aspect. And in this trailer, we've seen many new characters. Most of them I know nothing about. One thing we did not see is the Seraphites. And that is particularly interesting because it does seem like there's some time jumping in this game. A lot of time jumping. And why is a cult interesting? I find a cult particularly interesting in this case because their appearance, they dress and how they do their hair, the shaved heads, remains the same. So you can have significantly long periods of time, 10 years or more, and the people will still look the same. They'll still look like the same Seraphites. Maybe they did not change their clothes or appearance at all. Obviously, people age, but it is just one thing to me that would work very well if you wanted to have significant time jumping. You have a cult where everyone looks the same. It's very easy to hide small details that way, right? Other things that I particularly enjoyed about this is the combat and the landscapes looks unreal. Also, for someone who lives in the Pacific Northwest, seeing some of these places reimagined in a game is just mind-blowing to me. Seeing post-apocalyptic Seattle is so damn cool. I've been to some of those places. I've walked some of those streets, and that is just so dang cool. Can't wait to do that in this game. Can't wait to get my hands on this game. Please let me know your thoughts and your comments. Like always, my comments right now are all being held for review. I don't want any spoilers for any of you. I don't want it for myself as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you soon. Have a good one. Cheers.